we do have transferable skills in photography. The fact that I can get a great group shot at a corporate event is probably because I've been used to managing weddings for a number of years. The fact that I can get a great sharp image of a bride being swirled around the dance floor is probably because I can get a great image of, gymnastics or sports or something like that. So there are a lot of skills that are transferable across the different genres.
Welcome to the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast. I'm Angela Nicholson, and I'm the founder of She Clicks, which is a community for female photographers. In these podcasts, I talk with women in the photographic industry to hear about their experiences, what drives them, and how they got to where they are now. Today we're joined by Dr. Denise Maxwell, the powerhouse multi-genre photographer behind Lenzi Photography. Denise has captured iconic figures like Barack Obama and Usain Bolt and covered major events such as the BAFTAs and the Commonwealth Games, making her mark in sports, fashion, journalism and event photography. Hi Denise, thank you so much for joining me today on the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Now, I know that you switched to photography as a career when you were made redundant from the NHS, but what was it that first attracted you to photography in the beginning?
Oh, so if we start from the beginning, I would say that I have always been a photographer of my family and of my friends. I have pictures from my junior school and possibly even my late infants where I'd borrow my mum's camera.
Oh, wow.
And take my friends at school. So on the last day of leaving school, I've got pictures of us all crying and all that kind of stupid stuff that you do when you leave junior school because you think it's the end of your life and, everything's going to be terrible. And they were taken on my mum's, I think it was called a Kodak 110. Like the film is kind of quite a long film and then it's got like two kind of curved bits at the end.
Yeah.
So I've always really liked capturing moments and being the person that has images of those moments. Oh, also to explain, I've got a bit of a dodgy throat, so if at any point it sounds like I'm about to cry, I'm not. It's just my throat's really dodgy at the moment.
Okay, good to know.
So I think I've always enjoyed capturing images. So like I said, I used to borrow my mum's camera, and then when I was old enough to have my own camera, I had a point and shoot film camera that, again, I would bring everywhere. So this was before me and any of my friends were driving. So I've got pictures of us going to carnivals on the bus, going clubbing on the bus, pictures of all my friends when we had children. I was the only person that had a camera, so I took pictures of the babies. And I've just got all these moments that other family and friends around me didn't have because they didn't have a camera, but I was always that person. So back then, they were all a bit irritated with me. They were all a bit like, "Oh gosh, Denise, you've come with the camera again. Like we're only watching a film or we're only having a chill night in. What have you got a camera for? I'm not dressed or I'm not." And I'd literally take pictures of us just sitting around chatting and just doing the most random things. And you know how it goes when you kind of document things like that. They don't really mean much at the time, but now you go back and you look at them and, we're all 20, 30 years older and it's like, wow, remember when you lived in that house and remember your first flat, and I've got pictures of your first flat and, some of the children have now got children themselves and I've got pictures, of them as babies and, there's all those memories. So I think, just capturing images was always something that was interesting to me for some reason, who knows why.
So when you were made redundant, had you sort of started to take photography more seriously before then, or did you have a sudden switch? How did that transition go?
No, when I was made redundant, first of all, I looked for another job. At the time, I remember looking and I remember coming across loads of jobs where I was kind of thinking, that's okay, but I'm not really into that, or I wouldn't really enjoy that, or the pay was rubbish. What I did before as a job, I was on a very good salary at the time. So I was on a band 6 in the NHS, which was 34,000 in 2009. So it's a very good salary. I enjoyed what I did. I did work on deconstructing race and looking at anti-racism within the field of public health. So I really enjoyed my job. I loved who I worked with. I had great colleagues, had a great boss. So I had this kind of unreal work life where I enjoyed going into work every day and was fulfilled and, got paid well for what I did. So the idea of going to a job that I suddenly might not have enjoyed as much, and also because I worked on public health, I understood how important your social health was as well, not just your physical health. So everything that surrounds you. And I do know lots of people that don't enjoy the work and go to work every day, angry, upset, uptight, stressed. I didn't want that. So when I was looking for jobs, obviously I had all of this knowledge about how your social health affects your physical health, as well as this kind of unreal work life. So I wanted to find something that was very similar, where I could have the same pluses in all the different areas, and I couldn't find anything like that. There were some things that, maybe the salary was good, but the job wasn't so enjoyable, or some things that wouldn't feed my soul, but, they were located in the right place, etc. So I started to think to myself, like, what else is out there? What else can I do? And at that point, I started to think about whether or not this thing that I enjoyed doing in my personal time, photography, whether or not that was really viable. I mean, obviously there were other people out there that were photographers. We've seen images on TV and we see images all the time. But I didn't know if it was possible for myself or how you'd go about it, etc. But what I did do, I bought a camera. I originally was meant to be a Nikon, but when I went into Jessop's, and it was Jessop's, so I bought my first camera. When I went into Jessop's on the day to buy my camera, they didn't have the camera I wanted at the time, so I asked them if they had anything equivalent. They showed me a Canon 450D, so that's how I became a Canon, because you kind of get pulled into the ecosystem, don't you? Because then you buy the flash and you buy this, and
you do.
And then it all kind of builds. So I bought my first camera, and I'd just go on photo walks at first, just go for a nice long walk, just take pictures of whatever I came across.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started taking pictures of family and friends, and then more people found out about it. And then at work, because we knew we were going to be made redundant, my boss at the time put us all on alternative courses. So someone went off and did a counselling course, he went off and did a master's, I went and did a photography course. I can't remember what else some of the others did. But we all did these courses so we would have something to kind of fall back on when our contract was finally finished. So I did this photography course and loved it. In the time that I was there, I got distinctions in every module, so maybe I was a little bit all right at it.
Fantastic.
I kind of started to see that maybe this was a possibility, but I still didn't understand the financial aspect of it yet. But I started to see that there were people that were asking me to take photos for them and that were willing to pay me. And that's kind of how it started for me.
Did you ever do anything like sit down and write a business plan or anything like that? Or did you just kind of like drift into the actual working side?
I drifted into the working side. No, I didn't write a business plan. I did have goals that I wanted to achieve, and I've still got those in my workbook now. So my workbook from college has got a list of goals, like where I want to be in 5 years' time, in terms of kit and in terms of what I'm shooting, etc. And every now and again, I go back and look at my kit goals, and obviously that's kind of like, long been surpassed, because you know how it goes with photography, and you just gather stuff, don't you?
Yeah.
So that's long been surpassed. But sometimes I look at my list of goals in terms of where I wanted to be. And I wanted to be a full-time photographer that was shooting weddings and portraits and events and earning the same amount that I earned in the NHS from my photography. So I guess in a very loose way and a very non-business-like way, that was a sort of plan, because I still had something that I was aiming for, something in terms of where I wanted to be that I can kind of measure against. It's very measurable, isn't it? A couple of those goals are very measurable. So I guess a very loose, non-business-like business plan.
Well, there are other people who put together really strong business plans, a bit like, a revision timetable at school for exams, and then don't do anything about it. So, if you've got a list that at least you look at on a regular basis and try and address, then that's as good as anything, probably better, isn't it?
Yeah.
But do you still add to that list?
I don't add to that particular list, but every year I still do make a list of things I want to achieve. That might be people that I want to shoot, events I can say that I've worked at, companies I can say I've worked with, places I want to visit because of my photography. So it's changed, but I still do make a list of goals, because I think it still gives you something to aim for. I think it's really easy to kind of get into a career and just get comfortable and not grow because you're just comfortable. And I don't think I've ever been that kind of person to not want to do more. So yeah, I do still make a list of goals. They've just changed very much from when I first started.
So how are you doing against your 2024 list of goals?
So my 2024 list of goals, a lot of people that I wanted to shoot, I haven't shot yet. They'll just go on and they'll just roll on to 2025. I've achieved some of the goals in terms of some of my speaking goals, and I also deliver courses. So some of my course goals in terms of how many people I get on a course, which courses are up and running. So I've achieved some of those goals. But as I said, for the ones that I don't achieve, such as the people that I wanted to shoot or companies I want to say I've worked with or at, they'll roll on to 2025 and I'll still keep kind of aiming for those.
That sounds like a really good process. Have you started? Obviously, you've got the things that you haven't done for 24 that are going to roll on to 25, but have you started a new list yet for 25, or do you leave that to the 31st of December?
Oh, no, that happens in January, sometimes even February.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you need a bit of downtime to reflect, don't you, and think forward, and yeah. Okay, I think that's a really good idea.
In January as well, I'll be away for the first part of the month, so it'll just be a nice time to kind of like be away from home, be in the sun, just a nice time to decompress and just to kind of have that headspace and, that different environment to be able to think about things a little more. So I'll probably do that in January.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said when you started out, lots of people started coming to you, friends and family, and then it's usually friends and friends asking you to do some photographs. But was there a point that you switched to marketing yourself to reach beyond that sort of network?
I wouldn't say that I did that purposefully. I often will get people that will ask me when I'm doing talks, etc., how they go about getting more clients. And one of the things I say to them is, first of all, you do start with your immediate environment, whoever's around you. So for me, it was my friends and family. But then what happens is that your friends and family also have contacts, and they have contacts, and they have contacts. And before you know it, you do get into those completely different markets. So my very first corporate gig was from, as a private project that I did, a personal project. I did a personal project on redheads. I like red hair, so I did a project on redheads. It was a portrait project, and that ended up leading me to shoot the Redhead Festival in Breda in Netherlands. They have, I don't know if you know, but they have a whole Redhead Festival where 8,000 redheads from across the world come together to celebrate being redheads, and they have films that star redheads and songs and all kinds of things. Wow. It's just a big celebration. It's amazing. It's really something to see. You kind of get to the town and literally everybody's got red hair.
Fantastic.
So as part of that, I ended up getting quite a lot of press coverage over it, got some BBC coverage over it, etc. I did various shoots for that. And I think maybe one of my third shoots, one of the people that posed for portraits for me worked at Birmingham University. I didn't know at the time, because how I went about finding the people for the project was literally I'd see somebody in the street, I had a letter, I gave them a letter that explained what the project was, what I'd want from them, if they want to be part of it, etc., and when the shoot dates were. And one of the people that responded, as I said, worked for Birmingham University. I didn't know at the time, but she was quite senior in Birmingham University. And after I did her portraits, she asked me if I'd be willing to do some images on their prospectus. And that was my first corporate gig. So it came from a personal project, but obviously, it's in terms of you don't know who works where, who knows who, etc. And that's how it kind of grows. So whenever people ask me about how they get gigs or how they get into corporate or how they get their first gigs, I always say start with the people around you, and it will grow and grow and grow because they all have connections. And by the time those connections are 2- and 3-fold, then you're already into the corporate world. So that's how I got my very first corporate booking. It wasn't a purposeful marketing.
How did you feel about that first booking? Were you nervous or were you just excited?
Oh, absolutely nervous. I mean, it's funny when I look back now, because the amount of gear I bought with me for it was prospectus images. So it was a case of like students that were already working and, events that are already happening around the uni and some of the buildings and stuff. I just remember bringing a shed load of gear, and I look back at that now and just laugh, because that would now be my cameras and my speed lights. But I remember bringing tripods and just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Because at that point I was still learning. I didn't know exactly what lighting I would need or exactly what would be produced from the different lighting. So I was still learning, still winging it a little bit. But yeah, I was very, very nervous about that first event.
But you were prepared for everything.
Oh, yeah.
Landscapes, still life.
Yeah.
Macro, the lot.
Yeah, everything.
Brilliant. Now, you're a multi-genre photographer, so you shoot a wide variety of subjects. You've got a wide variety of clients. How do you juggle them all?
I don't think it's any different from a wedding photographer that might have... So, for example, one of my colleagues is a wedding photographer and he does 180 weddings a year.
Whoa, that's a lot.
Exactly. It is a lot. It is a lot. There's two of them and they have two editors, but 180 weddings a year. And I think about that in comparison to me shooting multiple genres. And it just, what I do feels like a doddle in comparison. Whatever you fill your diary with is just what you fill your diary with. So when you have no more space, you just have no more space. So I don't think it's any different from somebody that covers one genre because they do their, I don't know, if they do 3 days a week, 4 days a week, they're 4 days a week shooting one thing. Whereas my 4 days a week might be sports on one day, portraits on another day, an events on another day. So I don't see it as actually any different. It's just the fact that I shoot different things instead of the same thing every day.
But I suppose I was thinking, if you are a wedding photographer, for example, you're usually booked for half a day or a day, so you do that whole thing. But if you're shooting portraits, then it may only be an hour or two. So, do you sometimes think, oh, well, can I squeeze this around that? And, just trying to make sure your day is full, or are you more relaxed about it?
Oh, no, I'm more relaxed about it. I think that one of the plus points for being self-employed and running my own business and that it's photography is that I can have this great work-life balance. I don't aim for my days to be 10-hour days, to be full from start to finish. I do like the flexibility, but if I want to go and see my niece and nephews play or see them at sports day or whatever it is, I like the flexibility of being able to do that. In the job that I worked before, even though I was working a 40-hour week, we still had the flexibility where if I needed to bring my car in for an MOT, then I could bring it in. The boss was quite relaxed about that. So again, I feel that that's really important in your work life. I think it's really important to have that flexibility and to have that time where you can be with your family and you can have headspace to do other things and to relax, etc. I think that for me, I think that so many people are in jobs where not only do they have to be fully, full throttle from 9 to 5, but then it's also from 6 to 9, they're still answering emails. And I just don't think that that's healthy. So I do structure my week where most weeks I don't work 5 days a week. Most of my weeks I kind of work maybe 3 days. Occasionally I might have bookings on 5 days, but that's a kind of rarity. I like the fact that most of my bookings, I think on average, most of my bookings are about 3 hours. So if I have an event, 3 hours is generally how long most of my events are. And that works fine for me. There are other days that are longer. Like I said, I don't try and fill it. I think that is a healthy way to live and to work. So yeah, I quite enjoy that.
Please excuse this interruption. Thank you to CEWE, Europe's leading photo printing company, for supporting this podcast. CEWE offers an extensive range of high-quality photo products, including the award-winning CEWE Photobook. This festive season, why not surprise your loved ones with a truly unique gift? A CEWE Photobook celebrates unforgettable moments, from cherished family gatherings to spontaneous snapshots and epic holidays. Give the gift of memories, beautifully presented, something personal that they'll treasure forever. OK, let's get back to the show. Did you make a conscious decision to be a multi-genre photographer, or is that how your mindset is and how your business developed?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that before I even think about business, I know that I've always been in jobs that have been very, very varied. So I'm doing completely different things on different days. And I kind of think that's probably how my mind works, that I like being able to do different things. It keeps me excited still. It keeps me not bored. I think somebody recently pointed out that my website and my Instagram looks very much like that same kind of way of thinking where I like to show all these different things at one time. So I think somehow it all links into how my brain works and how I operate. And I think I ended up getting different opportunities in different genres that were still dream opportunities. So, for example, the first time I shot athletics, the Diamond League, I remember that we've always been into athletics in our house. So I remember Carl Lewis days, Linford Christie days, Sally Gunnell, all of those greats. I remember them running. I remember us all sitting in the living room watching them run. When I first got to shoot my first Diamond League athletics, do I turn that such a great opportunity down because I'm a portrait photographer or wedding photographer? Absolutely not. I'm getting to be in a stadium with people that I used to watch or the people that have come after them. I'm getting to, see things that I used to watch on TV and now I'm standing in those very stadiums. So I ended up getting opportunities that were just too good to turn down. So obviously I was going to take those up, but then also I enjoyed all those genres. I think another thing that it does as well is that it makes me a more all-rounded photographer, if that makes sense. So there aren't many things now that would faze me. Somebody booked me for a fashion show, for a sports gig, for a campaign, for whatever it is. There aren't many things that could faze me, and there aren't many lenses that I wouldn't have to cover a particular type of job as well.
I guess it helps keep you fresh as well because you're constantly learning. Well, you learn something at one place and you can introduce something different to another.
Absolutely. I think one of the things, again, that I speak to immersion photographers about is transferable skills. We talk about it in the corporate world all the time. So, we fill it in on our CVs where we talk about, I've got transferable skills from this job because I was a speaker at this job and I can transfer them into such and such a job. So we talk about it in the corporate world all the time, but we don't talk about it in the creative world as much. And that's one of the things that I'm kind of a big fan of, talking about the fact that, and not just talking about the fact, but understanding the fact that we do have transferable skills in photography. The fact that I can get a great group shot at a corporate event is probably because I've been used to managing weddings for a number of years. The fact that I can get a great sharp image of a bride being swirled around the dance floor is probably because I can get a great image of, gymnastics or sports or something like that. So there are a lot of skills that are transferable across the different genres. And I think being a multi-genre photographer helps me to be able to access those different skills for different jobs and just be, like I said, a more all-rounded photographer.
It sounds to me like in the way you talk about photography and the things you do, that you still get a lot of joy from it. Because I know quite a few photographers who are professional and it's very much a kind of, that's their day job and then they do something else. But it sounds, you were talking about watching your nephews and nieces at sports day and I was thinking, there's no way you just watch them. You're there with the camera, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
And it's funny because everyone walks in with these phones and then their auntie walks in with this 7200 and embarrasses them. But, there's another generation of people that will be embarrassed by me now, and in 20 years to come, they'll be thankful that I did that.
Yeah.
Yes, I do still get a lot of joy from photography. I think, again, that's one of the things that shooting multiple genres does, because you don't get bored of the same this again and that pose again and that venue again. I've got a friend who's been he's been an Asian wedding photographer for maybe 20 plus years now, and he always says to me, I'm sick of seeing loved up Asian couples. Can you bring me on one of your jobs? I'm just doing something different.
No. Oh dear.
And it's like, your work is so exciting. And he has been on a couple of fashion shoots with me to London Fashion Week, etc. But I think, again, shooting multiple genres just keeps it fresh, because I'm always excited over the next shoot. I'm excited that, next week I've got a premiere and I might finally get to shoot Denzel Washington, who's on one of my to shoot lists, etc.
Oh wow!
And then might be I'm at Fashion Week. I remember one of the years I was at Fashion Week and I bumped into Naina Cherry, And when I was young, we used to dress like her. So she was like a poster on the wall and everything. And suddenly Nana Cherry stood in front of me. So there's lots of things in shooting multiple genres for me that is still exciting. So yes, I still love my job. Yes, I'm still excited by different shoots. I'm not bored yet.
Good.
I'm just very, very blessed.
Good to know. So at what point in your career did you start teaching and mentoring photographers?
I'm trying to think when the first session was that I did. I mean, before photography, I've always delivered training. So my very first job after leaving uni, I worked in the field of domestic violence. And after working there for about 3 or 4 years, I went into delivering training in schools and with adults. So I've always had an aspect of training in a lot of different jobs that I've done. So in the domestic violence field, I also did some work with young mums, and again, training was an aspect of that. And then when I did anti-racism work, training was a major part of that as well. So I think I've always enjoyed giving knowledge, challenging, helping people to learn. I've always enjoyed that. Also, when I was made redundant, as well as getting my photography qualification, also I got a petals qualification as well, which is an official training qualification. I did consider getting a teaching qualification, but the rates of pay and the work is just absolutely terrible, so I never went down that route. It just felt natural that with photography, that after a certain point, that teaching or workshops or imparting knowledge, education, whatever you want to call it, was part of that. I think probably my first gig was my previous college that I attended. They asked me to come back and speak to their current student, just as an alumni who is now a photographer, and a little bit about my journey, etc. So I think that was my very first teaching gig in photography, and then it kind of grew from there. So there were other lecturers that were at that college at that time that had moved to other colleges. They asked me to speak at theirs, and then just the same as it goes with getting bookings and commissions, you know, one person hears you speak, they work somewhere, they're linked to somewhere, they then contact you to speak at somewhere else, and it just kind of grew from there.
What advice would you give to aspiring photographers? So the one particular gem that you like to pass on?
One particular gem that I'd like to pass on, and it's going to sound very, very simple. I often get asked the question, probably most months I'll get asked the question multiple times, what's the one thing I should do in order to move on, in order to get further in photography? And the one piece of advice I give that sounds very, very simplistic is simply practice. The reason I say practice is that you don't want to be in the position that when you get an opportunity, so when you get invited to shoot the Diamond League or get invited to, you know, a gig to shoot London Fashion Week, you don't want to be in the position where you do that gig and then you fail miserably because you haven't been prepared, because you haven't practiced. And I say to all emerging photographers, practice to the point where you know your camera inside out, where you know your camera with your eyes closed, where you know exactly what lighting is going to be brought, what lighting you're going to get from what type of flashes. I remember doing lots of practice sessions I've got a sheet in my college booklet where I was practicing with my speed light for the first time, and I literally sat myself on a stool, had a remote, took a picture with my flash, then would move it, you move your flash up to all different points around, and then I'd shoot it forwards and move all points, and then I'd bounce it backwards, and I'd take a picture on each one. These are all printed out in my college booklet. So it's like left one click, right one click. And all of this was me starting to understand how a speed light works and how bounce flash works.
Yeah.
It was really tedious and it was really long, but yet I had this 3-page spread just showing exactly where the light fell on my face, which helped me to understand speed lights. So there's lots of things that I practiced on so that when I did get those opportunities, I was able to do them well enough to still get more commissions from that. And that's how my business grew. Now, I can't say that if, the first time I shot, again, the Diamond League, for example, if I completely messed that up, if my agency would let me shoot that again, or if I'd get another commission to shoot that. So practice is the biggest thing for me for growing your business so that, you can deliver when the opportunity comes. And also, the other thing about practice as well is that for most of us, we will start with a very basic website. My first website was populated from all my projects at university. So we had a documentary project, and we had a press project, and we had a portrait project. And that was my very first website. But also, I wanted to make that website fuller. So all of my practice that I did, so my photography walks, and when I'd go on holiday, and my friends and family, and all of those things became part of my first initial website. So again, when a client was looking, when a client's looking me up, or when somebody contacts me to commission me for a shoot, I'm able to show them this website of all these plethora of great images that shows that I can complete this work, and can show that, that I can work with people, and I can work with groups, and all of these kinds of things. So it gave them the confidence in order to commission me early on, before I had all of those commissions. So practice works in a lot of different ways. And also, I think it's one of those things that, even though I advise that to emerging photographers, I still show people now how I still do the same thing today. So I still practice now. So before, I'm a very big sneakerhead. I can't even tell you how many pairs of trainers I've got. I really wouldn't even know. I'd probably say at least 60 pairs, maybe, something like that.
Wow, crikey.
And before I wear a new pair of trainers, I practice with them, so they become some kind of trainer shoot, some kind of sneaker shoot.
Right.
I'll do that with a lot of new things I have. So I'll practice the light, and I'll practice, different methods of suspending them so it looks like they're, suspended in air, etc. So I do that with trainers. I do that with food. I do that with lots of new stuff that I get. So that process of still learning, of still practicing, of still pushing myself, of still shooting different things is still there. So yeah, practice is the biggest thing that I would give to new photographers. There should never be a point where your camera has been in your bag for months and not taken pictures. That just shouldn't happen, because practice is all around. Your practice is your partner sitting on the sofa next to you, and you're getting some documentary images. Practice is everywhere. So that should never happen. And that's my biggest tip to all photographers.
I think that's really good advice.
Thank you.
I think particularly in the age of YouTube, it's a fantastic opportunity for learning, but it's very easy just to sit there and kind of soak it up.
Yeah.
And then you pick up your camera and you kind of just freeze, because you can't remember anything that they said, or you haven't actually translated it, and you need to develop that muscle memory.
Yeah.
Doing it yourself, don't you?
I think that's one of my criticisms of some courses, in terms of so much theory and so little practice, because it's the practice that's going to get you commissions. It's the practice that's going to help you get on the road of being a full-time photographer, not the theory of knowing who created the first photo, how the first photo was created, which art galleries are delivering which type of work. That's not what most photographers get their commissions in. So it's going to be the practice that helps you to become that full-time photographer.
Okay. Well, I think that is a really good time to go to Six from She Clicks. So I've got 10 questions from some She Clickers, and I'd like you to answer 6 questions by picking numbers from 1 to 10. Now, it's interesting, this one, because quite a few people asked similar questions. So there's quite a few that are several or a couple of names. But so can you pick your first number, please?
Number 2.
Is there a genre of photography that you enjoy more than others? And if you could only shoot one genre, would it be that one? Several people asked that.
Ooh. Okay. No, there isn't one genre I enjoy more than others. I enjoy lots of different things from lots of genres. So, for example, if I'm shooting sport, I love 100 meters. I love that part of sport. I also love gymnastics. Whether using ribbons and hula hoops and all those things, I love rhythmic gymnastics to shoot. It's absolutely amazing. There's just so much to shoot. I love, in weddings, I love couple portraits. I love the moments in the morning with the bride and her best friends. In business portraits, I'll have a lot of people that will come to me for business portraits, as an example, that will say all of their work images before they've hated their LinkedIn picture, they've hated, what the photographer has produced before. And suddenly I've produced a range of images for them where they're like, oh my gosh, that's me. That picture's going everywhere. I'm sending that up every time I speak, etc. So I don't have one genre I enjoy more than others. I enjoy lots of different things about lots of genres. And I don't know if I would be able to just shoot one thing. So sorry to the person that asked that question, because I've kind of not answered it. So sorry.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, so can I have your second number, please?
Number 5.
Okay, this is a good observation. Although you're a multi-genre photographer, you have a focus on people. Do you find it easy to engage with people? And do you have any tips for anyone looking to improve in that area? And a few people asked that.
Oh, do I have a focus on people? I wouldn't have recognised that myself. So it's interesting when other people give you observations that you haven't necessarily observed yourself.
We're thinking like sports, athletics, you're photographing people, weddings, people portraits, so...
Yeah, I guess so. Like I said, I wouldn't have necessarily said that, but I can see how that definitely comes across. I think I do find it easy to interact with people. I think, again, transferable skills, it's always been part of my career. So I've always had careers where I've worked with people. I'm also a qualified youth and community worker. So that's always been part of how I operate, what I do. But again, for those people that doesn't come so naturally, I think what I always advise photographers who, because I have had similar questions before, what I advise those photographers is don't push yourself to have to work in a genre where you don't feel comfortable. Photography is so wide and so vast. There are so many different things and genres you can shoot. I have a colleague that only shoots still life, so he mostly does clothes and shoes, and he's had a 30-year career shooting clothes and shoes. He shoots for Mothercare, he shoots for Bolden, he shoots for a lot of the big brands, and he doesn't interact with people. It's just clothes and shoes. So, you don't, if that's something that doesn't suit you, talking to people and interacting with people, don't feel as though you have to push yourself to do that. I think there's this huge misconception, especially amongst some emerging photographers, that you have to make your living in weddings and portraits and events. There are lots of other genres that you can make a living in as well. I also have a couple friends that are very successful landscape photographers. So they'll be getting up at 2:00 in the morning to walk up a mountain to get, this sun rising over a particular cliff, and literally not speak to another person, but get this amazing image that they then sell, and they have galleries, etc. I'm trying to think of some of my other colleagues that don't do any work that interacts with people. Some of my press colleagues, although press, as in red carpet, seems as though it's working with people. Basically, you don't speak to the celebrities often. You don't interact with them. Literally, it's a step and repeat. They come, smile at everybody. The next person comes, smiles at everybody. You take your shot. So there are lots of genres in photography where you don't have to interact with people. If that's not something you're comfortable with, then you don't need to push it. There's lots of other things you can shoot. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, fair enough. Can I have your third number, please?
Number 6.
Do you use the same kit for all the genres you shoot? Or are there some lenses you only use for certain genres, for example?
Yes. So I only really ever get out my macro lens for weddings, because I only really use it on rings and small details like that. So I don't bring my macro lens to many other jobs. Sorry, sometimes I'll bring it to food gigs, actually, if I'm shooting food. Yeah, food and weddings probably for my macro. I only bring out my very big telephoto lenses for festivals and for sports. My general go-to kit that will come to every single job with me will be my 70-200, my 24-105. I prefer that over my 24-70 because my particular one feels sharper. I don't know if it's something about the lens or about that particular lens. Different lenses can sometimes be a bit faulty. So yeah, my 24-105 and then my 35 in case there's low light in whatever environment I'm in, and my 2-speed lights, and that is the kit that goes everywhere with me, no matter what I've got, no matter what type of job I have. And then there'll be others in addition to that, depending on what else I'm shooting. So yes, not every lens goes to every job, but there is that kind of core kit that is always in my bag that will come everywhere.
Do you ever take a tripod with you?
Sometimes, yes. So if I'm doing loads of loads of single shots, for example, I might be doing loads of portraits, I want them all to have the same framing, I might take a tripod with me then. If I'm doing some type of street photography where I want to get passers-by blurred and one person focused, I might use a filter on the front of my camera to darken everything down and just get the blur from everybody on one person focus. So yeah, there will be different environments where I will definitely bring a tripod as well.
Okay. Can I have your fourth number, please?
Number 9.
Are you planning to introduce more courses or expand your mentoring program? Several people asked that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm working on that now. So one of the things I do at the moment, so I deliver a course on teaching photographers how to earn 5 to 10K per month from the photography. And I base that on what I earn and how I've gone about it. So that's my course, my main course that I deliver at the moment. I also do one-to-one sessions. So I do one-to-one sessions on lighting or whatever it is that particular photographer wants to learn. It's a kind of tailored one-to-one sessions. But I am definitely thinking of expanding those. I'm actually working at the moment on having off-the-shelf courses that people can access at any time, rather than at the moment I deliver my course once a year. But I'm actually working on it being an off-the-shelf course that people can purchase at any time. So definitely that. In terms of my mentoring, I do 2 different types of mentoring. So the type where somebody would book me to, as I said, deliver a lighting course to them and show them how to use speed lights. That might be, something specific to them. I also deliver a mentoring program, mentoring or shadowing, where people can shadow me on real commissions. So that's me bringing someone to Fashion Week, me bringing someone on a film premiere, me bringing somebody on a corporate gig, for example. And that's sponsored by MPB. Again, that will depend on what happens with sponsorship in the future. It's something I'd love to expand, because I do think it's actually harder for photographers to enter the field now than it was when I started. I think I was very blessed and very fortunate at the time that I started that, there were more press agencies around that you could join very easily. There were, I think that especially post-COVID, I think a lot of things have kind of locked down a lot more. So it's harder to get into sport. It's harder to get into London Fashion Week. It's harder to get into some of these arenas. So if I can be one of those people that help emerging photographers to be able to get into some of these fields and get into some of these events, which means they then have that in their portfolio, which means they then understand that, so that again, when they do get a commission or a chance, they can say, yes, I've shot this, I understand this. If I can be one of those people, I think it's a very worthy legacy to be able to leave, to say you've helped XYZ person to, get on their way to wherever they're planning to be. So yeah, I'd love to be able to expand it, but we'll see what funding says in the future.
Okay. Well, I think that's a really nice attitude, but it does help you sleep at night a bit better, doesn't it, when you've helped somebody with something like that?
Absolutely. My husband was at an event a few months ago, and he said this guy came up to him and said, "Your missus helped me get into photography." He described this guy to me. I haven't got a clue who this guy was. He was telling me all about how I gave him this advice, and I was like, okay, well, thank you, but I don't know who you are.
Oh, well. That's nice that you mentioned it, though. So, can I have your 5th number, please?
10.
If you could give your younger self some advice, what would it be? That question's from Liz. Bearing in mind all the things that you've learned, what you've done over the years.
Oh, I really don't know, because at first, what I started to think about, would I have started earlier? Because it's a great profession to be in. But then I loved what I did before, so maybe I wouldn't have started earlier, and then maybe I wouldn't have had that experience to be able to do some of the things that I do now. So I don't know if I'd advise that. Would I advise myself to have not gone about it the way that I did? No, because that's led me to where I am now, which is a very comfortable place. So I don't know if I'd do anything different, because I'm happy where I am and I'm content where I am and I'm loving where I am. So I don't know if I'd advise myself to do anything different, just to do the same as what I've done.
Okay, that's really interesting, because you actually managed to answer 2 questions in one there, because number 8 was about if you would rather have started photography earlier, or do you feel that you've benefited from having some work before that and, that extra experience that you've got. So you answered that question as well, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
So, can I have your final number then, please?
Number 3. I don't think I've said 3.
Do you work on any personal photography projects? Marianne asked that.
Okay, yes, Marianne, I think that every photographer, no matter how early or far you are into your career, should do this. I think your personal projects is where you can, if for example, you do get to the stage where you see your photography as just a day job, your personal projects is where you can keep your passion. It's where you can do something that you really enjoy without any time constraints, without any budget constraints, without any styling constraints. You can do exactly what you want. And what often happens with personal projects is they then convert to real commissions because it catches somebody's eye. Whatever you've decided to do personally catches somebody's eye. I'll give you a couple of examples of this. So my redhead project, for example, that was something I decided to do. From that, I wrote a book that is still on sale now. All the colleges that I worked at purchased that book. I went to Breda from that. I did a range of interviews on the BBC from that personal project. From that as well, the BBC for about 2 years would contact me to speak on redhead issues where I'd get paid to speak on the radio as a redhead expert because of all these people that I'd interviewed.
Wow.
So here's me as a redhead expert, literally all from a personal project. So that's one example. Personal projects really do transfer into real commissions, into real jobs. Another one of my colleagues recently, he did his name's Darren Watley, you can look him up on Instagram. He did a Black History Month project. Again, it's a personal project of his, just photographing prominent Black people in his community. From that, he got a 2-day exhibition. From that 2-day exhibition, someone else saw that exhibition and then offered him a month-long exhibition. The Royal Society of Photographers has then got involved and also given him some funding to extend that exhibition. He's then also got some funding from the Arts Council to finish off that piece of work. So all of this has come from him starting a personal project. Also, what I forgot to mention, he was featured in The Voice, he was featured on the BBC, and he recently took part in a panel at the University of Wolverhampton, all from a personal project. So another example is a personal project from Anissa Dowager. I think it's called The Fighting Spirit of South London, where she's done a range of portraits of, I think it's Muay Thai fighters in her local gym. And again, that has been exhibited at the photography show where she spoke about it. It's been exhibited by, I think, the Royal Society of Photographers. It's been exhibited in multiple places. She's had multiple radio interviews. She's had multiple press coverage over this. And again, this was from a personal project. I've got lots of examples. I could literally go on all day, but personal projects are so important for your growth as a photographer, for your creativity as a photographer, and for bringing in new clients, because that's where you get to do exactly what you want to do. And that will speak to the clients that are looking for something like that. They may not be looking for the corporate gig that you've just shot or the commission that you've just shot. They may be looking for exactly what it is that comes out of your mind, out of your creativity. So yes, I do personal projects. I still do them today. I've been working on a couple. I've been working on a breastfeeding project. Been working on that for a while. I've been working on a project around menstruation. Been working on that for a while. So I've always got personal projects in the background, always got them going. And yeah, it's really important to do them. So for anyone watching, yes, please do them.
Okay, well, I think that's a brilliant point to finish. Thank you so much for joining me on the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Special thanks to everybody who sent in a question. You'll find links to Denise's website and social media channels in the show notes. I'll be back with another episode soon, so please subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast platform and tell all your friends and followers about it. You'll also find SheClicks on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube if you search for SheClicksNet. So until next time, enjoy your photography.